My name is Lauren Mitchell, and I was 31 years old when my boyfriend asked me not to come home to my own apartment. Not because he needed space. Not because we had argued. Not because he wanted to surprise me. His exact words were much colder than that. I need the apartment tonight. Don't come home. And don't ask why. Looking back now, I realize relationships rarely collapse all at once. They unravel thread by thread, tiny warning signs, hiding inside ordinary days until one sentence finally pulls everything apart. At the time, Daniel Brooks and I had been together for 2 years. He was 33, charming, in that effortless way that made strangers trust him within minutes. About 8 months earlier, he'd practically moved into my apartment. My name was the only one on the lease, and every payment came from my account, but we'd slipped naturally into sharing the place. Or at least I believed we had. I had installed a smart lock security system after a burglary in our building the previous year. It wasn't something I thought about often. It simply logged every entry and exit, with precise timestamps quietly doing its job in the background. I never imagined that little app would one day tell me the truth before my boyfriend ever would. That Monday evening started like every other. I stayed late at work finishing quarterly reports, while Daniel texted me around 6. I need the apartment tonight. I smiled at first, assuming he was planning something. Sure. What time should I come back? His reply arrived almost immediately. Not sure. Maybe stay with Hannah tonight. I frowned. What's going on? Another message. Just trust me. Then came the sentence that made my stomach tighten. Don't come home. Don't ask why. I stared at my phone for nearly a full minute. The words weren't angry. They weren't affectionate either. They sounded rehearsed, like someone trying to keep a door closed. For weeks, little memories had been collecting quietly in the back of my mind. Daniel suddenly taking phone calls on the balcony, smiling down at messages before turning his screen away, buying new cologne after years of saying fragrances gave him headaches, going to the gym twice a day, laughing whenever I asked who kept texting him. You're getting paranoid, Lauren. It's just work. You're imagining things. Every explanation sounded reasonable by itself. Together, they formed something much harder to ignore. Still, I wanted to believe him. Love has an incredible way of negotiating against your own instincts. Instead of arguing, I texted my best friend Hannah. Can I stay over tonight? She replied almost instantly. Of course. Everything okay? I looked down at Daniel's message one more time before answering. Probably not. I left work around 7, picked up takeout. Neither of us would end up eating, and drove across town. The moment Hannah opened her apartment door, she took one look at my face and wrapped me in a hug. What happened? I handed her my phone. She read the conversation twice, then looked back at me. Lauren, I know. No, you don't. I know how suspicious it sounds. She folded her arms. Are you going to just sit here pretending everything's normal? I pulled my phone back out. I already checked. The Smart Lock app loaded in seconds. The first entry appeared exactly where I expected. 7:4, 7 p.m., Daniel Brooks entry granted. Nothing unusual. Then, another notification. 8:02 p.m., guest access granted. Hannah leaned closer. Who's that? I don't know, but someone went into your apartment. Yes. And Daniel specifically told you not to come home. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. My pulse had become strangely calm, not because I wasn't hurting, because some part of me had already begun accepting the answer before seeing the evidence. I opened our building's resident directory. Visitors entering through the main lobby were temporarily logged for deliveries and guest access. There it was. 7:56 p.m. Emily Carter. Neither of us recognized the name. Hannah grabbed her laptop. Let's find her. 20 minutes later, we knew far more than I ever wanted to. Emily Carter, 36, marketing executive, married. Her Facebook profile wasn't private. Family vacation photos, birthday celebrations, Christmas mornings, 2 young children smiling beside their parents. Her husband appeared in nearly every picture. His name was Michael Carter. He looked like the kind of man who believed his life was exactly what it seemed, just as I had believed mine was. Hannah looked at me carefully. What are you thinking? I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I stared again at the smart lock timestamps. Daniel, Emily, 8 minutes apart. Inside my apartment. Inside my home. Inside the place where we'd planned birthdays, cooked dinners, watched movies, and talked about building a future together. Every second that passed made the silence louder. What if we're wrong? I whispered. Hannah didn't sugarcoat it. Then he'll explain. And if we're right, she sighed softly, then someone else deserves to know too. I found Michael's Instagram, public account, family photos, Little League games, anniversary pictures. A man completely unaware that his wife wasn't where she claimed to be tonight. My thumb hovered over the message button. For almost 30 minutes. I wrote, deleted, rewrote, closed the app, opened it again. Finally, I attached screenshots from the SmartLock app. A photo of my apartment lease, showing my name and address. Then I typed slowly. Hi, Michael. You don't know me, but I think you deserve to see this. My name is Lauren Mitchell. My boyfriend asked me not to return to my apartment tonight. According to my security system, your wife entered my apartment shortly afterward. I may be wrong, and I sincerely hope I am. But if I were in your position, I'd want someone to tell me. I'm so sorry. I pressed send. Neither Hannah nor I spoke afterward. We simply waited. 8 minutes later, the message was marked seen. No reply. 10 more minutes passed. Nothing. The television played quietly in the background while neither of us watched. Every vibration from my phone made my heart race. Then finally, a new message appeared. What is the address? I sent it. Apartment number included. Almost immediately, another message arrived. Thank you. Then one final sentence. I'm coming. For one reckless second, I considered driving home. Not because I wanted to confront Daniel. Not because I thought I could stop what was coming. I simply hated the idea of another person walking into my home and discovering the truth before I saw it with my own eyes. Hannah seemed to read the thought on my face. No, she said firmly. I didn't say anything. You didn't have to. You're thinking about going there. It's my apartment. And right now, it's a loaded gun. I looked at Michael's final message again. I'm coming. Hannah took my keys from the coffee table and placed them beside her. You stay here. Let him deal with his wife. Daniel made this mess. The word wife still felt unreal. Emily wasn't some unattached woman Daniel had met at a bar. She had a husband, children, anniversary, photographs, a life full of people who trusted her, just like Daniel had me. At 10:58 p.m., my phone vibrated. The building security app had sent a notification. Main entrance accessed. I sat upright. That could be anyone, Hannah said. 3 minutes later, another alert appeared. Unusual noise detected on the 4th floor hallway. My floor. Hannah closed her eyes. He's there. Our building had hallway security cameras that residents could view during emergencies. I had never used them before. My fingers trembled as I entered the access code. The grainy feed appeared. A man stood outside my apartment door. Michael Carter. I recognized him from the family photographs, but he looked nothing like the smiling father from social media. His shoulders were rigid. One hand was clenched at his side. The other pounded against my door. Once, twice, 3 times. Emily, he shouted. Open the door. Even through the weak camera audio, his voice cracked. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the door opened. Daniel stood there wearing gray sweatpants and no shirt. I stopped breathing. His expression changed the instant he saw Michael. Confusion, recognition, fear. Who are you? Daniel asked, though his face made it obvious he already knew. Michael shoved the door wider. Where is my wife? Daniel stepped into the hallway, trying to block his view. You need to leave. This is Lauren Mitchell's apartment, isn't it? At the sound of my name, Daniel's head jerked slightly toward the security camera. For one horrible moment, I felt as if he were looking directly at me. Then Emily appeared behind him. She was wearing one of my oversized college t-shirts. The faded navy one Daniel always said looked cute on me. My shirt stopped halfway down her thighs. Her hair was loose and messy. She was barefoot. There was no innocent explanation left. Michael stared at her. The anger drained from his face and was replaced by something worse. Devastation. "Emily," he whispered. She went pale. "Michael, wait. You said you were helping your sister. I can explain." He laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "You're wearing another woman's clothes." Daniel lifted his hands. "Listen, man." Michael turned toward him. "Don't call me man." Daniel's mouth closed. "You brought my wife here," Michael said. Emily stepped forward. "He didn't bring me. I came willingly." The words seemed to surprise everyone, including Daniel. Michael looked at her as if she had struck him. "How long?" "Not here." "How long?" "Michael, the children. How long have you been lying to me?" Daniel looked impatient now, as if Michael's pain were an inconvenience. "This is getting out of control." Michael rounded on him. "You're standing half naked in her apartment and you think this is just now getting out of control." Doors began opening along the hallway. Mrs. Chen from across the hall stepped out in her robe. The college student from 4D appeared with his phone in his hand. Another neighbor stood near the stairwell, pretending not to watch. Emily noticed them, her face twisted with panic. "Can we please go inside?" "No," Michael said. "You wanted someone else's home. You can explain yourself right here." Daniel reached for the door. Michael pushed past him. The camera couldn't show what happened inside, but the microphone caught furniture, scraping and voices rising. Emily begged Michael to calm down. Daniel insisted nothing had happened. Michael shouted that her shoes were beside the bed. Then came the sound of something falling. Hannah reached for my hand. I hadn't realized I was crying until she wiped a tear from my cheek. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Inside the apartment, Daniel raised his voice. "You need to get out before I call the police." Michael answered, "Call them. Tell them why I'm here." 30 seconds later, Daniel rushed back into the hallway. He was pulling on a shirt as he ran, his shoes clutched in one hand. Michael followed him to the doorway. "You knew she was married." Daniel turned near the elevator. "She told me the marriage was over." Emily appeared behind Michael. "That's not what I said." Daniel stared at her. "You said you were leaving him." "I said I was thinking about it." The elevator doors opened. Daniel stepped inside. Michael grabbed one of Daniel's shoes from the floor and threw it. It struck the closing elevator door with a hollow thud. The neighbors recoiled. Emily covered her face. Michael turned back to her. "I want you out of our house, before the kids wake up." "Michael, please. You didn't think about them when you came here. It was a mistake." "A mistake is forgetting an appointment. This was a plan." That sentence went through me like broken glass, because it was exactly what Daniel would soon try to deny. Emily reached for her husband's arm. He stepped away. "Don't touch me." Then Michael looked straight toward the camera. Perhaps he knew I was watching. Perhaps he was only searching for something solid in a hallway where his whole life had just collapsed. He gave the smallest nod. Then he walked toward the stairwell without looking back. Emily remained frozen in my doorway, while neighbors whispered around her. My apartment door was still wide open. My private life had become public theater. At 1:17 p.m., my phone started vibrating. "Daniel, where are you?" Another message arrived. "Lauren, answer me." Then, "This is not what it looks like." I stared at those words until they blurred. "What does he think it looks like?" Hannah asked bitterly. "A charity clothing exchange." I didn't laugh. Daniel called. I rejected it. He called again, then again. "Lauren, please. Michael is crazy. Emily and I were just talking. You caused a scene for no reason." That message killed the last fragile part of me, still waiting for an apology. Not "I'm sorry." Not "I hurt you." Not "I made a terrible choice." He blamed me for the consequences, before even admitting what he had done. I opened his contact information. My thumb hovered over block caller. 2 years reduced to 1 button. Birthday dinners. Sunday mornings. His toothbrush beside mine. The apartment we had slowly started calling ours. Hannah squeezed my shoulder. "You don't owe him access to you." I pressed the button. Blocked. At 1:34 p.m., Michael sent another message. "Thank you for telling me. I needed to see it myself." I swallowed hard before replying. "I'm sorry you had to." His response came quickly. "Don't be. She would have kept lying. Your boyfriend would have too." A moment later, another message appeared. I'm calling a divorce lawyer tomorrow. I stared at it. Are you okay? There was a long pause. No. But I will be. Then he asked, Are you? I looked toward Hannah, toward the uneaten food on her table, toward the security feed where Emily still stood in my doorway with strangers watching her. No, I typed. But I will be too. Michael responded with one final message. Neither of us deserved this. I set my phone face down. That was when the shock finally broke. I folded forward, pressed both hands over my mouth, and sobbed so hard I couldn't breathe. Hannah wrapped her arms around me. Daniel had not only betrayed me, he had used my home as the stage for it. And somewhere beneath the grief, another feeling began to rise. A quiet certainty. The worst part of that night was not over yet. I stayed at Hannah's apartment that night. Sleep never came. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emily standing barefoot in my doorway wearing my shirt, while her husband's face broke apart in front of her. Then, I saw Daniel looking toward the hallway camera. For one brief second, his expression had not been shame. It had been calculation. By 7 the next morning, I had convinced myself that nothing could surprise me anymore. At 9:42 a.m., my building manager called. Miss Mitchell, this is Mr. Alvarez. We need to discuss what happened last night. I wasn't there. I understand. But the disturbance involved your apartment. I rubbed my eyes. What happened after everyone left? There was a pause long enough to make me sit upright. Your apartment door is still open. My stomach dropped. What? The door has apparently been open for several hours. We also have reports of property damage. I was already reaching for my shoes. What kind of damage? I think you should see it yourself. Hannah insisted on driving me. Neither of us spoke during the 20-minute ride. I kept imagining a broken lamp or overturned furniture from the confrontation. I was not prepared for what waited behind my front door. Mr. Alvarez met us in the lobby. He was a careful, soft-spoken man in his late 50s who had helped me carry boxes when I first moved in. That morning, he could barely look at me. I'm sorry, he said. The elevator ride felt endless. When the doors opened on the 4th floor, 3 neighbors were standing in the hallway. They stepped aside silently. My apartment door was wide open. The first thing I saw was the television. A crack ran across the screen like a bolt of black lightning. Then I noticed the framed photographs on the floor. Glass glittered across the hardwood. The photograph from our first anniversary had been torn directly through my face. Hannah whispered, "Oh my God." I walked inside. The couch cushions had been slashed. Kitchen drawers were dumped onto the floor. Plates and glasses lay shattered across the tiles. A dining chair was overturned, one leg snapped off. My laptop sat open on the coffee table, its screen crushed inward. The air smelled like spilled alcohol perfume, and something burned. What happened here? I asked. Mr. Alvarez remained near the doorway. The hallway cameras show Miss Carter leaving around midnight. Your boyfriend returned approximately 20 minutes later. Daniel came back. Yes, of course he had. He still had a key. He stayed until shortly after 4 this morning, Mr. Alvarez continued. Several tenants heard shouting and objects breaking. We reviewed the footage after the complaints. He did this. I'm afraid so. The bedroom was worse. My mattress had been cut open from corner to corner. Clothing covered the floor. Some pieces were mine. Others belonged to Daniel. Mine had been torn, soaked in something sticky, or sliced through the fabric. My perfume bottles had been smashed against the wall. The mirror above the dresser was shattered. Written across it in red lipstick were 4 words. You made this happen. For several seconds, I couldn't move. Daniel had cheated on me. Then, when the truth found him, he punished me for discovering it. Hannah stepped beside me. He wanted you to see this. I nodded slowly. That was the part that frightened me most. This was not random destruction. It was a message. Mrs. Chen appeared in the bedroom doorway. She was still wearing her slippers and holding a flash drive. My doorbell camera recorded part of it, she said gently. I thought you might need the footage. We watched it on Mr. Alvarez's tablet. At 1:22 a.m., Daniel returned alone. He entered the apartment carrying a bottle. At first, he simply paced. Then he began making phone calls. Even without sound, I recognized the gestures. His hands moving sharply, his jaw tightening, his finger pointing toward no one. Around 1 a.m, he stepped into the hallway. The camera picked up his voice. "She ruined my life," he shouted into the phone. "She sent that man here on purpose." A pause. "No, I'm not apologizing. She wanted to humiliate me." Then he went back inside. The destruction began minutes later. He carried my laptop into view and threw it against the wall. He dragged photographs from the shelves and crushed them under his shoes. At one point, he sat on the floor crying. For half a second, I almost recognized the man I had loved. Then he stood, picked up a lamp, and hurled it into the apartment. Mrs. Chen touched my arm. I called security twice. They said they were on the way. By the time they came upstairs, he had left through the stairwell. I looked at Mr. Alvarez. "I want the locks changed." "They already are." "I want his access removed from every system." "Done." "And I want a police report." He nodded. "An officer is waiting downstairs." The next several hours blurred together. Photographs, statements, lists of damaged property. A preliminary estimate of more than $4,000. The officer explained that the camera footage would support a criminal damage complaint, though recovering the money might require a separate civil claim. I signed every document they placed in front of me. By noon, several neighbors had come by. Some brought trash bags. One brought coffee. Mrs. Chen returned with a plate of rice cakes I couldn't eat. "You should never be ashamed of someone else's cruelty," she told me. I looked around at the ruins. "I keep wondering what I missed." "You missed nothing," she said. "You trusted the person you loved. Trust is not stupidity. Betraying it is." Her words stayed with me. Around 3 that afternoon, Daniel called from an unfamiliar number. I answered before realizing who it was. Lauren. His voice was hoarse. I closed my eyes. "What do you want?" "I need to come get my things." "You destroyed half of them." I was upset. "You demolished my apartment." "You had Michael come here." "No. I told him where his wife was." "You knew what would happen." "I knew he would learn the truth." Daniel exhaled angrily. "It was one mistake." "One mistake. We can fix this." I looked at the broken television, the slashed couch, the red words on my bedroom mirror. "You planned it, Daniel. You told me not to come home. You brought a married woman into my apartment." His voice softened. "Lauren, please." Emily meant nothing. "How long?" "It doesn't matter." "How long?" Silence. Then he muttered, 3 months. The room tilted. 3 months. Every late meeting. Every sudden gym session. Every time he kissed my forehead and told me I was imagining things. "Were you sleeping with her here?" "Sometimes." I pressed my hand against my mouth. He continued quickly. "She said she was leaving Michael." "I thought you and I were drifting apart." "You were cheating before we drifted apart." I was confused. "No. You were comfortable." "Lauren, you had both of us. Me paying for the apartment, her telling you she might leave her husband. You wanted every option open." "That's not fair." I laughed, but it sounded broken. "Fair." His voice hardened. "You embarrassed me in front of the whole building. You were half naked in my doorway with another man's wife. You could have confronted me privately. So, you could lie privately." He said nothing. I lowered my voice. "You didn't destroy my apartment because you loved me. You destroyed it because you lost control of the story." His breathing changed. For the first time, I knew I had said something true enough to wound him. "You think you're so much better than me," he said. "No. I just know I deserve better than this." "I hate you." "Good. That will make leaving easier." I told him whatever belongings survived would be placed in boxes in the lobby. He had until Friday evening to collect them. After that, they would be donated. Then I hung up and blocked the number. By Wednesday morning, the locks were changed, the police report was active, and Daniel's boxes were waiting downstairs. He arrived shortly after noon. Mr. Alvarez refused to let him upstairs. Security footage later showed Daniel arguing in the lobby for nearly 15 minutes. He pointed at the elevator. He demanded to see me. Then he kicked one of the boxes hard enough to split it open. Clothes spilled across the floor. Mr. Alvarez called the police. Daniel left before they arrived. He never returned for the rest. That afternoon, I filed paperwork for a small claims case. It wasn't about the money. Not entirely. It was about refusing to clean up one more mess Daniel had made while he walked away, pretending it belonged to someone else. When I returned to the apartment, the red lipstick still stained the broken mirror. "You made this happen." I picked up a cloth and scrubbed until the words disappeared. Then I stared at my fractured reflection. "No," I whispered. "I just stopped hiding what you did." 2 months later, my apartment looked almost normal again. The walls had been repainted. The mattress was replaced. A new television sat where the broken one had been. Insurance covered $3, $800 of the approximately $4 200 inches damage. My premiums increased, and the remaining amount became part of the small claims case I filed against Daniel. The repairs were the easy part. Replacing furniture only required money. Replacing the version of myself who had trusted him required something else entirely. For the first few weeks, I slept at Hannah's place. Every sound in the hallway made me tense. Every notification from the smart lock app made my stomach clench, even though Daniel's access had been permanently removed. I started checking the lock 3 times before bed, then 5. Sometimes, I woke at 2 in the morning convinced someone was standing outside my door. That was when Hannah suggested therapy. At first, I resisted. "I'm not the one who cheated," I told her. "No," she said. "You're the one who survived what happened after." So I went. My therapist, Dr. Patel, asked me a question during our second session. "What hurts more, the affair or the destruction?" I thought about it for a long time. "The destruction," I finally admitted. "Why?" "Because the affair showed me he didn't love me the way I thought he did. But destroying the apartment showed me he wanted me to suffer for finding out." Saying it aloud made the truth clearer. Daniel had not lost control. He had chosen where to aim his anger. Not at himself. Not at Emily. At me. The small claims case moved slowly. Daniel never responded to the first notice. The second was delivered to his parents' house in another state, where he had apparently moved after losing his job. When the court date arrived, he did not appear. The judge ruled in my favor. I won the remaining $400 plus filing costs. Collecting it was another matter. Daniel was unemployed and had no assets in his name. My attorney explained that I might never recover the money. Strangely, that did not bother me as much as I expected. The judgment mattered. For once, there was a document somewhere that told the story correctly. He caused the damage. He was responsible. He could not rewrite that. Emily's life collapsed more publicly. Michael filed for divorce the morning after the confrontation, exactly as he had promised. A week later, he discovered the affair had not begun 3 months earlier. It had started almost 6 months before that night. Daniel had lied even during his confession. Michael found hotel receipts, deleted messages, and a second phone Emily had hidden in a drawer beneath old tax documents. According to what he later told me, there had been weekends when Emily claimed to be visiting her sister but was actually with Daniel. There had been anniversary dinners where she left early to call him. There had even been one family vacation where she messaged Daniel from the hotel bathroom while Michael and their children slept in the next room. That detail made me physically ill, not because it surprised me anymore, because it revealed how practiced the deception had become. Michael received primary custody while the divorce proceeded. I never asked for details about the children. They were innocent, and I did not want their pain turned into gossip. Emily also faced consequences at work after Michael confronted her at the office. She was not fired for cheating. Her company did not care about her marriage. But she had used company travel funds to pay for at least 2 hotel stays with Daniel. That became an internal financial investigation. Within a month, she resigned. Daniel's version of events changed depending on his audience. To some people, he claimed our relationship had already ended. To others, he said I had become controlling and emotionally distant. He told one mutual friend that I had secretly monitored him for months. That part almost made me laugh. The smart lock had not spied on him. It had simply recorded him entering my apartment with another man's wife, after ordering me not to come home. Receipts are cruel that way. They do not care how persuasive a liar sounds. Several mutual friends contacted me. Some apologized for believing him initially. Others asked whether I really needed to involve Michael. One woman told me, "You could have confronted Daniel first and handled it privately." I asked her one question. If your husband were inside another woman's apartment, would you want her to protect him from you? She had no answer. The people who thought honesty was crueler than betrayal slowly disappeared from my life. I let them. Daniel never collected the rest of his belongings. After the deadline passed, I donated everything usable. His jackets, his shoes, the expensive headphones I had bought him for Christmas, the coffee mug that said "World's Best Boyfriend." I held that mug for several seconds before placing it in the donation box. Then I laughed. A real laugh. The first one in weeks. Mrs. Chen became a regular part of my Sundays. She arrived every weekend with cookies or dumplings and pretended she had made too much. We both knew she was checking on me. The story of that night became building legend. New tenants heard different versions. In one, Michael kicked the door down. In another, Daniel jumped from the balcony. Neither was true, but accuracy had never stopped apartment gossip. Mr. Alvarez told me I was now known as the smart lock woman. I hope that's a compliment, I said. It is, he assured me. Mostly. I began dating again after 6 weeks. Nothing serious. Coffee with a divorced teacher named Adam. Dinner with a software engineer who spent 40 minutes talking about cryptocurrency. One disastrous movie date with a man who brought his mother without warning. I was not looking for a replacement. I was reminding myself that Daniel was not the last person I would ever trust. Michael and I stayed in occasional contact. Every few weeks, one of us checked in, usually with short messages. How are you holding up? Did the court date happen? Are the kids okay? We were not friends in the traditional sense. We did not meet for drinks or talk every day. And despite what several people later assumed there was nothing romantic between us, we were simply two people who had stood on opposite sides of the same betrayal. Sometimes it helped to speak with someone who understood that grief did not disappear simply because the guilty people were gone. One evening, Michael sent me a message after his divorce was finalized. "It's official." I stared at the screen before replying. "How do you feel?" His answer came several minutes later. Sad. Relieved, angry, free, all at once. I understood perfectly. Then he wrote, "You saved me years." I replied, "You saved me too." Because seeing Michael confront Emily had shown me something I might otherwise have spent months refusing to accept. There was no misunderstanding, no innocent explanation, no version of events where Daniel had accidentally betrayed me. The truth had walked through my front door, and once it did, there was no putting it back outside. People later asked whether I regretted messaging Michael. I did not. They asked whether sending him the address had been revenge. It was not. Revenge would have been inventing a punishment. I only stopped protecting Daniel and Emily from the natural consequences of what they had chosen. They created the secret. I revealed where it was hiding. There is a difference. For a long time, I blamed myself for ignoring the signs, the private phone calls, the sudden changes in routine, the way Daniel accused me of being suspicious whenever I asked a normal question. But therapy taught me that hindsight can become another kind of cruelty. I had trusted him because he had asked to be trusted. That was not my failure. His decision to exploit that trust belonged entirely to him. On the 3rd month after the breakup, I came home late from work. The hallway was quiet. My apartment door had been replaced after the damage, but the smart lock remained. I stood there with my hand on the handle and remembered Daniel's message. "Don't come home. Don't ask why." He had believed those words would control me. He thought love had made me passive. He mistook trust for blindness. He mistook patience for weakness. And he thought my apartment was a place where he could betray me without consequence. He was wrong about all of it. I opened the door. The apartment smelled like the candle Mrs. Chen had given me. The new couch was covered with pillows Hannah helped me choose. On the wall where the torn anniversary photograph once hung, I had placed a framed print with a single sentence, The truth does not destroy a life built on honesty. I stood beneath it for a moment. Then I locked the door behind me. Daniel lost a relationship because he cheated. Emily lost her marriage because she lied. They both lost control of their stories because evidence survived their excuses. The smart logs did not ruin them. Michael did not ruin them. I did not ruin them. Their choices did. Sometimes the best revenge is not humiliation. It is not screaming louder. It is not destroying what someone loves because they hurt you. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is place the truth in the hands of the person who needs it. Then step back and let consequences enter on their own. Daniel asked me not to come home that night. In a strange way, he got what he wanted. Because the woman who eventually returned to that apartment was not the same woman who had left it. She no longer confused loyalty with silence. She no longer accepted blame for other people's cruelty. And she would never again allow someone to make her feel like a stranger in a home that belonged to her.